You know that feeling when you open your banking app?
Oh, the spinning loading icon.
Yes. The loading icon spins and your stomach just drops. It is this, like, physical, visceral reaction to a digital number on a screen.
Completely. It triggers a literal fight or flight response.
Right. But what if that exact feeling, that tightness in your chest and that wave of anxiety is the actual biological mechanism keeping that number at zero?
Which is a terrifying thought, honestly.
It really is. So today, we are tearing into the highly controversial teachings of the law of attraction to see if our financial anxiety is, well, actually a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Because we are conditioned from a very young age to look at our finances strictly as cold, hard math,
Yeah, spreadsheets, monthly budgets, all that.
Exactly, compounding interest rates. But when you strip all of that away and look beneath the surface, our relationship with wealth is deeply, fundamentally emotional.
So welcome to this deep dive into the fascinating and, frankly, pretty polarizing world of money and the law of attraction by Esther and Jerry Hicks. Our mission for you today is to decode the hidden connection between your emotions and your wealth.
We're going to break down the exact psychological and vibrational tools the book claims will stop you from unconsciously repelling money.
Right. And because we want you to have the absolute full picture, we are putting these concepts under a microscope. We're examining both the mystical promises of these teachings and the fierce scientific pushback against them.
Yeah, we will definitely be examining this through multiple lenses today. On one side of the spectrum, we have the esoteric teachings of Abraham, which the text describes as this non-physical group consciousness channeled by Esther Hicks.
Quite the concept to wrap your head around.
It is, yeah. And on the other side, we bring in the rigorous skepticism of modern psychology. The objective isn't to tell you what to believe, but to give you a comprehensive understanding of how these mechanisms operate within the human mind.
Exactly. So let's start with the fundamental premise, because to understand how to attract wealth in this specific framework, we have to, completely redefine what money actually is.
Right, it's not what we think it is.
No. In this worldview, money isn't paper, it isn't coins, it isn't even a direct reward for labor. It is a frequency.
A frequency?
Yeah.
And the source material structures this idea around something called the Abraham Hicks Emotional Guidance Scale.
Okay, what is that exactly?
Well, it's a framework that ranks our most common human emotions from the highest vibrational frequency to the lowest.
Like a ladder.
Sort of like a ladder, yeah. At the very top of the scale, at number 1, you have states like joy, empowerment, and love.
Makes sense.
And then the scale descends through 22 different emotional states, ending at number 22, which encompasses despair, fear, and powerlessness.
Oof. Number 22 sounds rough.
It is. The theory proposes that your emotional energy functions like a radio broadcaster. You are constantly emitting a frequency, and the universe acts as a mirroring mechanism, bringing you situations, people, and financial realities that resonate at that exact frequency.
See, I look at that scale and immediately see a massive practical problem.
What's that?
Well, if I am sitting at a 22, meaning I am totally broke, I am panicked about rent, I am drowning in debt, how on earth am I supposed to just flip a switch and feel joy at a 1?
Right, it seems...
I mean, that doesn't just feel difficult, it feels biologically impossible.
Well, according to the texts, it actually is impossible.
Wait, really?
Yeah. This is the exact point where most people attempt the law of attraction, fail, and walk away feeling completely disillusioned. You cannot jump from despair straight into joy.
Okay, that is a relief to hear, honestly.
Right, because the human brain is wired to detect threats. So if you try to force a feeling of joy when your survival feels threatened by poverty, your brain experiences massive cognitive dissonance.
It just rejects it as a lie.
Exactly. It rejects the positive thought as a dangerous lie. The secret that the teachings advocate is reaching for the next best feeling.
The next best feeling.
Yeah. You don't aim for joy. You aim to move from despair to, say, anger.
So anger is actually a step up.
In this scale, yes. Because anger has more energy than despair. Once you stabilize that anger, you reach for frustration. From frustration, you move to pessimism, then to hope. You climb the ladder gently, honoring the emotional progression.
Wow, that reframing changes everything. It reminds me of the physics of a tuning fork.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
Right, like if you strike a tuning fork that is built to vibrate at a frequency of lack, it can only resonate with other things out in the physical world that are also operating on that lack frequency.
Perfect way to put it.
You literally cannot tune into the abundance frequency until you slowly change the structural makeup of the instrument itself.
A perfect visualization. To ground this in our daily lives, the authors use a rather brilliant analogy regarding your car's fuel gauge.
Okay, the fuel gauge.
Imagine your current bank account right now is exactly like the gas gauge on your dashboard. It is merely a temporary, in-the-moment indicator of your past vibrational offering.
Past vibrational offering.
Yes. When you are driving down the highway and that needle dips to empty, you do not pull over, bang your head against the steering wheel, and cry about how unfair the universe is to you.
Well, hopefully not.
Right. You simply accept the data the indicator's providing and you go fill up the tank.
It's so funny because if we treated our cars the way we treat our bank accounts, we would be an absolute wreck.
We really would.
We attach so much shame and moral failing to the empty bank account rather than just seeing it as an unemotional data point. But that raises a major question for me.
Sure.
If climbing that emotional scale is the ultimate goal and nobody consciously wants to be broke, why do so many of us stay chronically stuck at the bottom of the scale?
Well, the answer lies in our subconscious programming, specifically what the sources call our dominant thoughts.
Dominant thoughts. So the things we think about most often.
Exactly. When we look at the psychological coaching notes attached to this material, two overarching themes dominate the average person's mental landscape. The first is worry.
Yeah, I can attest to that.
On the emotional guidance scale, worry sits right in the middle at number 14. It acts as this low-grade, constant repelling frequency. And the second dominant theme is the overwhelming, impossible to-do list.
The chronic feeling of being endlessly busy.
Yes, being overwhelmed and entirely out of control.
Which brings us to a massive collision with modern hustle culture.
Oh, huge collision.
Because we are bombarded with the message that grinding, sacrificing sleep and forcing things to happen through sheer willpower is the only valid path to success. But looking at this framework, there's a fundamental difference between inspired action and forced action.
The law of attraction dictates a principle that completely inverts hustle culture. Hard work and forced action will actively repel money if your underlying emotional state is desperation or fear.
Wait, really? So hard work can actually push money away?
If the underlying vibration is fear, yes. You cannot compensate for vibrational misalignment with frantic physical action.
Wow.
If you are operating from a place of sheer exhaustion and terror of failing, working a 60-hour week doesn't broadcast hard worker to the universe. It broadcasts a massive, undeniable signal of lack.
Pushing yourself to the brink out of panic feels a lot like trying to catch water by clenching your fists.
Oh, that's incredibly accurate.
Like the tighter you squeeze, the more the water just slips right through your fingers. You're expending all this energy, but your grip is what's actually causing the loss.
And the mechanics of how this gripping happens on a neurological level are detailed in what the text calls the 17-second rule.
17 seconds. That's very specific.
It is. The teachings claim that when you hold your focus on any thought for just 17 seconds, a matching vibration becomes activated in your mind. That is the combustion point.
Okay, the combustion.
Right. And if you manage to hold that pure thought for 68 seconds, the vibration becomes powerful enough that physical manifestation begins to take shape. But here is the psychological hurdle. Most human beings cannot hold a pure, positive thought about financial abundance for even 17 seconds without an objection creeping in.
Right, because of our evolutionary negativity bias.
Exactly.
The moment I try to focus purely on the thought, like, I'm going to be incredibly wealthy, my brain's survival instinct kicks in and says, yeah, but rent is due on Tuesday and your car needs new brakes.
And boom.
And boom, the 17-second timer resets to 0.
It resets constantly, trapping you in a scarcity mindset. To illustrate the difference, the sources use the analogy of breathing air.
Breathing air, okay.
A person dominated by a scarcity mindset holds onto their money tightly, hoarding it, stressing over every single penny. They treat money as if there is a limited supply of oxygen in the room and they are about to suffocate.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. But someone operating with an abundance mindset lets their money breathe. They exhale, knowing with absolute certainty that there is always more air available to inhale. They trust the infinite flow of the resource.
But I mean, just telling someone to trust the flow or think positive is useless advice when their nervous system is in a state of panic.
Completely useless.
Right. How do we actually bypass that evolutionary negativity bias? If our subconscious doubts keep interrupting that 68-second manifestation window, how do we rewrite the habit?
This is where we transition from abstract philosophy into practical application. The book offers a highly specific, step-by-step cognitive tool designed to bypass that internal resistance. It is designated as process number 17, called the focus wheel.
I was highly skeptical of this specific tool when I first saw it in the text, but looking at it through a psychological lens, it's actually incredibly clever.
It really is.
It feels like a way to gently hack the nervous system.
The structure of it is what makes it so effective. To execute a focus wheel, you draw a large circle on a piece of paper, and inside that, a smaller circle in the center, the hub.
Okay, a circle with a hub.
Inside that center hub, you write a positive present tense desire. Let's say, I am financially secure and at ease. Then you divide the outer ring into 12 distinct sections, like the numbers on a clock face.
Got it.
Your objective is to write 12 statements around that center desire that support it. But the golden rule of the focus wheel is this. Every single statement must be entirely believable to you right in this moment.
Okay, let's walk through the real-life case study from the text to see how this actually works. There's a woman named Sarah, and she starts the exercise completely consumed by deep financial terror.
Right, she's out of 22.
Exactly. If she tries to force a positive affirmation and writes, I am a millionaire, her brain's BS detector immediately goes off. It feels like a lie, which just generates more anxiety.
It backfires.
So her very first spoke on the wheel, at the 12 o'clock position, has to be incredibly gentle. She writes, I have made it through financial challenges before, and I am still okay.
Her mind cannot argue with that statement.
No, it's a fact.
It is historically and factually true, and more importantly, it provides a microscopic sense of release. She has satisfied her brain's need for truth while nudging her focus slightly upward.
Okay.
Then she moves to the next segment and writes, many people have improved their financial situation over time, and I am capable of learning. Again, entirely believable.
Yeah, you can't really argue with that.
Then I have skills and talents that can create value. She slowly builds momentum. By the time Sarah reaches the 12th statement, her internal vibration has shifted so significantly from where she started that she can genuinely, without cognitive dissonance, write, the universe is abundant and I'm feeling calmer and more confident about money.
So by forcing you to only write things you genuinely believe, you are slowly tricking the nervous system out of its fight or flight response. You're building a bridge between panic and peace, one undeniable truth at a time.
And when you successfully build that bridge and achieve that peace, the teachings assert you have entered what they call the vortex.
The vortex. Sounds very sci-fi.
It does. The vortex is described as a vibrational escrow. It is an energetic holding area where everything you have ever asked for, every desire, every financial goal already exists in its complete form.
Okay, so it's all waiting there.
Exactly. The premise is that you do not have to work to build the reality. You merely have to become a vibrational match to it so it can flow from the vortex into your physical experience.
One of the primary techniques they advocate for entering this vortex is an appreciation rampage. And they make a really fascinating distinction between appreciation and gratitude.
It is a subtle but vital nuance. In this framework, gratitude often implies a relief from a negative state, for instance, being grateful you aren't struggling to pay the electric bill anymore.
Which sounds good, right?
While positive, it still carries the vibrational echo of the prior struggle. You are still partly focused on the pain you escaped. Appreciation, however, is a pure, unresisted focus on what is inherently good right now. It is active, expansive, and completely untethered from past trauma.
I see. But, manifesting wealth through appreciation isn't an overnight magic trick. You don't just fill out a focus wheel and instantly find a briefcase of cash on your front porch.
I wish.
Right. The book uses this great analogy about taking a road trip from Phoenix to San Diego. When you set out, you know your destination. Just because you are driving through the barren desert halfway there and you don't see the Pacific Ocean out your window yet, you don't panic, pull over, and turn the car around to go back to Phoenix.
You don't just give up.
No.
Yeah.
You trust the road. You accept that you are in transit.
It demands an immense, sustained trust in the unseen. But this brings us to a critical juncture. To provide a truly well-informed analysis, we cannot simply outline the promises of these teachings.
We have to address the pushback.
Yes. We have to address the massive blind spots and the fierce pushback this philosophy receives from the scientific and psychological communities.
Because I have a real issue with the physics they claim here.
The 40,000 hertz claim?
Yeah, the law of attraction leans heavily on the idea of measurable vibrations, arguing that thought energy operates at an incredibly high frequency, around 40,000 hertz. But neurological science tells us that human brain waves max out around 100 hertz. It feels like the authors just borrowed complex scientific terminology to make a mystical concept sound credible.
And the scientific pushback, prominently articulated by Dr. Neil Farber, a medical doctor and psychologist writing in psychology, today points out exactly that discrepancy. He categorizes the law of attraction not as science, but as metaphysical pseudoscience.
Pseudoscience.
The fundamental premise of how these thoughts allegedly travel through the ether simply does not align with modern physics or neurology.
But honestly, the physics debate isn't even the most dangerous criticism. It's the psychological and moral implications of the philosophy.
We have to look at the dark side of the concept that like attracts like.
Right.
The most severe critique Farber and others level at the law of attraction is victim blaming. The texts strictly state, and I quote, "There are no accidents."
Which is a heavy statement.
Extremely. The implication here is absolute. If you are 100% responsible for the reality you attract, then victims of systemic poverty, chronic illness, abuse, or natural disasters inherently attracted their own tragic fate through negative thoughts or a lack of vibrational alignment.
If you are listening to this and feeling a profound sense of anger at that idea, you are not alone. This is exactly where the psychological community draws a hard line in the sand.
Understandably so.
The idea that a sick child or a victim of a hurricane somehow manifested that reality through low vibrations goes against our basic human empathy. It strips away all the nuance of genetics, systemic inequality, and simple random chance.
Farber even points out that some early law of attraction texts actually discourage charity, arguing that focusing your attention on the poor just perpetuates poverty.
Which is just wild to me.
That lack of empathy is the ethical hazard of absolute manifestation theories. Moving from the moral critique to the cognitive critique, Farber explains the countless success stories of the law of attraction, the people who swear it works through two well-documented psychological phenomena, the placebo effect and apophenia.
Apophenia. That is essentially the human brain's desperate need to see meaningful patterns in random data. Right.
Precisely how it operates. It is the engine of confirmation bias.
Yeah.
A person visualizes receiving a check in the mail, and 2 weeks later, a tax refund arrives. They instantly attribute the check to their visualization.
Even though the tax refund was coming anyway.
Exactly.
Huh.
But they conveniently forget the 2,000 other times they visualized an outcome and absolutely nothing happened. The human mind creates a causal link where there is only coincidence. Furthermore, because the law of attraction explicitly discourages focusing on the how, the actual logistics of achieving a goal, it often leads people to ignore the necessity of making real-world, actionable plans.
So, knowing all of this, the pseudoscience, the apophenia, the victim blaming, can we separate the baby from the bathwater?
That's the big question.
Can we utilize the incredibly effective positive mindset tools without accepting the flawed physics? Because whether or not the universe is a magical catalog that answers our every vibration, showing up to your job or your life with a positive, abundance-focused attitude is just objectively better for your career and your mental health than showing up drowning in misery.
That is a highly pragmatic and effective way to view the material. You do not have to believe that your thoughts literally alter the fabric of the universe to benefit immensely from cognitive reframing. Shifting from a scarcity mindset, the clenched fists we talked about, to an abundance mindset fundamentally changes how your brain processes reality.
It actually rewires your reticular activating system, your RAS.
Oh, the RAS, right.
For anyone unfamiliar, your brain is bombarded with millions of bits of data every single second. The RAS is essentially the bouncer at the door of your consciousness. It decides what information gets through to your conscious mind.
That's a great way to describe it.
Right. If you program that bouncer with a scarcity mindset, it only lets in evidence of lack and threat. But if you program it with abundance through things like the focus wheel, your brain suddenly sees opportunities, networking connections, and solutions that were literally sitting in front of you the whole time.
The opportunities didn't magically manifest from the ether. Your brain simply finally allowed you to perceive them. Wealth is an emotional state before it is a physical reality. The resilience you build by constantly reaching for the next best feeling makes you infinitely better equipped to handle inevitable financial challenges.
Absolutely.
As the texts rightly point out, you truly cannot have a happy ending to an unhappy journey. The emotional state of the journey dictates the quality of the destination.
Let's leave you, the listener, with something concrete. Let's synthesize the mystical tools we've discussed with practical psychology to create a daily routine for attracting abundance starting tomorrow morning. Step 1. A 15-minute morning meditation.
Very important step.
Don't use this time to force positive thoughts or visualize yachts. Just sit quietly. The sole goal is to quiet the mind's resistance and let the static fade before the day begins.
Step 2. Utilize the 17-second rule, but apply it realistically. Set a physical timer on your phone. Can you hold one pure, positive thought about your financial capability or security for just 17 seconds without a single but or doubt creeping in?
It's surprisingly hard.
It is much harder than it sounds, but it is phenomenal training for your reticular activating system. It trains your brain to sustain focus on abundance rather than defaulting to lack.
And step 3. Implement the appreciation rampage during your daily commute or your morning walk. Instead of getting frustrated by traffic, which just tunes your radio to the frequency of frustration, actively look for things that are going right.
Focus on the good.
Yeah, focus on the warmth of the heater, your favorite song playing, the fact that you have a vehicle. Build that neurological momentum of actively seeking out what is working.
It is about changing the default setting of your mind from defense to expansion. Which brings us to one final provocative question to leave you with today. We began by talking about that visceral wave of anxiety you feel when checking an empty bank account.
Yeah, the dropping stomach.
If your current bank balance is simply a mirror, a delayed reflection of your past emotional states and focus, well, what is your money trying to teach you about your relationship with yourself today?
Wow, that is something to truly mull over. If the outside is just reflecting the inside, maybe the real investment needs to be in how we feel before we ever look at the math. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and we will catch you on the next one.